The Russians fight by train. And this is the supply point for the 2 million Russians who live in occupied Crimea. Crimea is not Missouri. It imports all of its food. It's arid. It imports all of its food from the Russian mainland. It's one bridge. And now that we're getting more capable weapons into the hands of the Ukrainians, the Kerch Bridge is probably not long for this world. And if it falls, their only line of supply to their population centers in Crimea and the entire western part of the front is through Mariupol. Okay, I'm gonna switch back, guys. I'll just stand over here for a while, unless that's detachable. Okay, so the only way that Ukraine can win this is if, number one, they take out the bridge, and number two, they recapture Mariupol, and they have to do it this calendar year. If they fail to do it this year, they run out of gear. And we've all seen the hilarious videos about how badly the Russians are doing and how they're dusting off tanks that were now made in the 60s because they ran out of the good stuff. But riddle me this. In a contest between badly trained, badly equipped Russian forces with tanks that are 40 years old, or highly motivated, lightly trained Ukrainian infantry with no weapons, who wins? You know, there's no math here. And then it becomes a partisan conflict. And we're not the only ones who took some lessons away from the Battle of Kyiv. The third big push is here. The Russians are trying to turn this into a pocket, advancing from the south and the north to trap the most advanced, best trained, best equipped Ukrainian forces into a pocket that they can then destroy. Their lesson from the Battle of Kyiv was that they're not going to be welcomed in as saviors after all. And that means the entire population is forfeit. And so the Russians have dusted off a strategy that they developed back before World War I. They recreated for the wars in Chechnya and in the Syrian civil war with the devastation of Aleppo. And they are using their artillery to advance very, very slowly under a hail of incendiary fire, deliberately targeting every piece of civilian infrastructure they can see, with an emphasis on agricultural infrastructure. Cold chain, ports, grain silos, tractors. They've got lots of reasons to go after tractors. Oh, come on, that was hilarious. You guys, like, there are hedges now in front of the Ministry of Defense in Kyiv that they have carved to be a Ukrainian tractor dragging a Russian tank. It's hilarious. Anyway, hi. Everything's forfeit. The goal here is to force the population of Ukraine to self-separate into two groups. The first group become refugees. You never have to worry about them again. Anyone who stays behind is clearly a fighter, and you can shoot them on sight. So they've brought in the Wagner group, which is their mercenary group, and they've brought in the Chechens to basically sweep any population centers that they've captured. We now know from both the operations north of Kyiv and near Kharkiv, as well as radio intercepts by the Germans, that what happened in Bucha, the war crimes, has happened in at least 70 other populated areas. We just can't confirm it because most of them are behind Russian lines. Fourth. We might need another battery. It's not working on here. Is it on this guy? You did? Okay. Do I you need the low battery thing, so. But is it this? There we go. Okay. Here, that's for you too. Okay. Isn't this fun? All right. So, finally, this is Odessa. Now, Odessa is not a normal city. It is at the mouth of the Dnieper River, which is kind of their equivalent to the Mississippi. And it is also their manufacturing center. It's a cultural hub. It's a financial center. So it is New York and Houston and St. Louis and Chicago and New Orleans all in one. And if the Russians succeed in capturing it, that is the end of Ukraine as a modern economic entity. Right now, Odessa is under blockade. They can't export anything. This has been the source of 95% of their exports to this point. At maximum hope, they can send 10 to 15% of their stuff out via rail to Europe. That's assuming everything goes right and the Russians stop targeting rail systems. 10 to 15%, that's as good as it gets. That's not great. Okay, what's next? There we go. If you treat the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the Belarusians as a single entity, and from an economic point of view in warfare, that's the best way to do it. Everything in the first column, they are collectively the world's largest exporter, and then second in the second column, and so on. I could spend 6 hours on this. I have. I want to just focus on 3 main points. First of all, energy. This isn't North Dakota. I mean, yes, North Dakota is just balls cold, but Siberia is a whole other thing. It's got something called permafrost, where if you go down 5 feet, the ground is frozen solid for the 20 feet below that. You guys are in the Midwest. You get it. In the winter, if you move, you're okay, but if you stop, you die. Same in the permafrost. Oil that's moving through the permafrost zone up out of the ground, if for whatever reason it has to stop, because of boycotts, because of sanctions, because of infrastructure damage, doesn't matter why, it freezes in the pipe. And water comes up as a byproduct of oil production. And the pipes crack. And you can never use that system again. The last time we had a shut-off in the Russian export system was 1992 when the Soviet system collapsed. It took them 30 years to bring it all back online. They didn't finish until last December. So at some point this year, we're going to lose 4 to 6 million barrels a day of Russian crude, and it will never come back. We have not priced that in. Yeah, here's a minor nightmare. The world's #1 wheat exporter has invaded the world's #4 wheat exporter and is systematically destroying the entire agricultural sector deliberately. Russia is going to see inhibitions in its ability to export for multiple reasons, but Ukraine will never be an exporter again. They will probably be a net importer by this point next year. And this is my personal nightmare. Russia isn't simply the world's largest exporter of fertilizers. It's the world's largest exporter of the materials that everyone else uses to make their own fertilizers. We've already seen significant disruptions to the flows. They're going to only get worse moving forward. Specifically, 40% of the world's potash comes from Belarus and Russia combined. Raw potash, forget the fertilizer, just the potash. We'll come back to that. One more minor issue, and then we'll get into the big stuff. This was always going to be the last decade of the People's Republic of China. Let's talk about the third most important reason why. We are having government collapse. Chairman Xi has instituted a cult of personality far tighter than any world leader in history, including Mao, including the Chinese emperors of old, including Donald Trump. He has intimidated into silence or imprisoned or executed everyone within not just the CCP, but the broader system who is capable of independent thought. He no longer has advisors. No one wants to bring him information because they don't know how he's going to react. He has literally shot the messenger so many times that he is making decisions in the dark.